Hi, it's Lori and welcome to my channel. In this video, we are going to add winter elements to an image using Photoshop textures and adding actions. I can't wait to share with you my favorite tools to add this beautiful winter pop of interest. So to get started editing this image to add some winter elements, the first thing I always do is I duplicate my background. So Command or Control on a PC, J, will duplicate your background. You can hide your original or you can leave it, either way. So this gives us a clean layer to work with for our image today. So what I wanted to show you today are some ways that you can add texture and Photoshop actions and brushes to create a beautiful winter scene image. So I live in an area where we sometimes get some snow, but it's not reliable. And often during this season of winter, I do like to create images that look a little more winter-esque and a little more magical. So there's some fun ways to do that using tools in Photoshop. So first, I want to jump over and show you some resources that I have in my files for creating these magical images. So let's jump over and I'm going to go to my external drive. let me make this larger for you. I have an editing tools folder, and within that, I've got lots and lots of different folders, but I have one for winter editing. So let's switch to, let's go to column view, and I'm going to go to winter editing. And now I've got these folders. So these are some of the resources that I've collected over the years. So I do have some bokeh that I keep in this file. So these are images that I've taken of out of focus bokeh light whenever I've able to catch it out in nature, in the garden, or in other areas. And I have a couple of those. I have a file of some bokeh overlays that I was gifted. So I've got some of those that are a lot of fun. This one is a nice one for holidays. So I have a whole collection of those. You can purchase bokeh overlays online, but you can also make them. So during the holiday season, you can take out of focus lights. You can really play around and create your own. I also have some bokeh overlays, and these again are just some. I really like this one that's in blue, and we'll probably play with this one today. Now, I also have some textures. So this one is by Coffee Shop. Coffee Shop is a website that you can look up coffee shop textures, and she creates incredible textures and gives many of them away for free. She also has some actions that you can purchase. So this is a stone winter texture, and I love it because it's got texture to it. It's got that coolness and some of the gray tones. So it's a really nice one. I also love textures from, it is a company, Daily Texture, and she has an incredible winter package. Now this includes these overlays that you can add wildlife, people to the scene. So these are some overlays, but she also has in this Dreamy Winter Scenes collection, she has snow overlays. These are great, and we are going to play with these today and while we edit our image. Next, I have Jessica Drazian, and I'll put the links to these in the description. She has a set called Endless Winter, and Endless Winter includes some actions that are in Photoshop, some brushes that are in Photoshop, but she also has some overlays. And so there's some different snow blanket, snowfall, blizzard. She also has a backdrop. So it's a beautiful winter scene that you can add people to. So this is an incredible package. It is a little more expensive to purchase the Photoshop actions, and Jessica Drazian's are phenomenal. I'm going to show you how they work today in case you want to purchase some actions. They are so fun to use and they make it really easy. And then lastly, I have some Lightroom that I showed examples of in a prior video that is posted on my site. These are some Lightroom presets for winter. So this is just my little collection. It's not a lot, but it works great. And I've had many of these for a really long time. I've had the Jessica Drazian packet of winter for probably 6 to 8 years, and I continue to use it. That's the beauty of these. Once you purchase them, be sure you save them to a folder. It's on an external drive, so I've always got it, and I keep it, active in Photoshop. All right, so let's jump into editing this image. So the first thing I think I'll show you is the simplest way to add a little bit of winter quality to a scene, and that would be adding a texture. So let's start with this coffee shop winter stone texture. So I'm just going to drag it over onto my image, and then I'm just going to transform, kind of drag it to fill the entire space to start with. And I'll click enter. And now I've got options. I can come over to my blend modes and I can try different blend modes to see what I like. For this image, I think probably soft light. Hard light is too much. Soft light is probably the one that I would use. And then I'm just going to bring the opacity down. So I just want it to be kind of really soft, as if it was snowy back there. I think it really does a nice job with that. Now, whenever you add a texture, you can come down to the bottom, right down here, and you can add a mask. It's always going to open with a white mask. And so now we want to grab our black brush and make sure up here in the top left corner, always make sure I have a soft round brush. So select that. And for our flow, I'm going to go ahead and keep it all the way up. That means the amount that the brush is going to put out. Think about your brush strokes. Opacity, I'm going to keep it about 50%. What I want to do is reveal some of the pine that's underneath the texture. So I'm just going to bring out a little bit of the details in this pine. So it's probably going to be barely noticeable, but just want to bring out a little bit of that. And so that's how you would do that. Now, if you wanted to bring out more of it, we could raise this all the way up. Maybe I want to bring out this stem in the center and some of these branches just a little bit more. So you can play with it. There are lots of ways to mask off a texture, and I do have another video on my favorite ways to do that. So if you are new to Photoshop and want to know how to mask something that's not maybe as easy as this image, be sure to check that video out. Okay, so that is adding a texture, really, really nice and simple. So I'm going to turn that one off, and let's go back to my winter editing files, and let's go look at Dreamy Winter. So Dreamy Winter, we've got different snow scenes. They're not going to apply necessarily for this image, but I did want to show you the snow overlays. So let's start with the medium. I usually like the small, but I think the medium will show up better with this image. So I'm going to drag this on top, and it's very much like using a texture. So I'm just going to come in and pop this on top, click enter. And now whenever you have an image that is black with something like snow or stars, you can always use screen as your overlay choice, your blend mode. Screen is going to remove that black and leave you with what is left. So now we've got our gorgeous snow, and we can reduce that opacity if we want it to just be really soft. You can also do Command T, and you can move it around. So if you feel like it's too heavy in one spot, you can move it. We can stretch it, which makes it a little bit, bigger. You can play around with that. Now you can also come down to the bottom and add your mask. And again, we already know we have our brush set up. And this time I want to keep it all the way at 100%. And I could just remove some of these flakes. If I feel like they're a little heavy on my subject, I can just come around and take some off. So that's the beauty of working within Photoshop and adding these masks. So that's a way that I could add some snow and just make this really fun. Now I want to also show you how to use the bokeh, because bokeh overlays can be really fun, especially if you shoot, maybe you're shooting some people in front of a tree, or you're shooting people out in a snowy scene, or pets, or just nature, and you just have really flat light. You can always come back in and add some bokeh. So let's go to the bokeh overlays, and I'm going to try this blue one. So let's bring this over. And with this, I'm going to position it where I think I want it. So I want to kind of soften this corner of the image and add a little bit of this bokeh. Now with the transform, you can also turn it. I think I'm just going to turn it to this corner. Then I'm going to click enter. Now I'm not going to change the blend mode, but I am going to go ahead and reduce the opacity because I want it to be really soft. And then we're going to need to come in and add our mask. And we've got our brush. Now this time I'm going to start with about 60-70%, And I'm just going to come around, make this brush a little bit bigger, and I'm just going to soften the edges where we really, I'm going to blend it basically. So I'm coming in. Now, if you keep your brush lower than 100%, you can just go over the area multiple times, and that's going to give you a really nice soft blend. I find it works much better than going all the way to 100%. So now I'm just blending that in, blending in this light, and there I've got this beautiful bokeh. Now, if I wanted to add it again, I could duplicate this layer and move it. So let's go ahead and go to this layer, and we want to duplicate it. So right here at the top, duplicate it, make a copy. And then what we can do is delete the mask. So delete that mask and then do Command T, and we can move it if we want to add some more of that. And maybe we want it to kind of dance over in this corner. And then we can click Enter. And again, change the blend mode. I'm actually going to make this really soft, add a new mask, and we can come back in and blend that mask. So I just go over it multiple times until it's all the way blended. This part's given a little trickiness. Okay, come around, and we just want it really nice and soft and natural. And we can even come in, bring back some more of our little pine leaves. And now we've just got this fun, kind of whimsical, bokeh-filled look to our winter image. So another way to add things to your images. So we've covered adding a texture. So you can see if I put that on top, you can also move these. So if you decide you want the texture to be a little more prominent, you can move it to the top of your stack. So we did a texture, we did some bokeh, and we did some snow. So lots of fun things to this image. Now what I want to show you are the actions. So in Photoshop, you can create your own, and you can add actions into the actions panel. For my panel setup, it's over here at history and then actions. There's a hamburger right here. And if you click on that, that is where you can load the actions that you purchase. So when you purchase the actions, you're going to download, they'll download to your computer. I encourage you to put them in a folder, hopefully on a storage drive. And then you can come here and click load actions. And once you do that, you'll bring those files in to Photoshop, and they will be here as long as you keep them in. So you can see right here, I have Jessica Drazian Seasons Endless Winter. And when I open it, these are all the options that come with the program. Now, I am not getting anything for recommending her action, so just want to say that. I do just have found them to be excellent, and I know there's other brands out there. So regardless of who makes the actions, I encourage you to maybe purchase one or two. I also have an autumn set. So what comes with actions usually is first you get some color tones. So if we play with these, I'm going to first choose Frostbite. Here's the beauty of an action. You just click the play button down at the bottom, and it's going to run the action for you. It's going to apply the color, all the changes, the mask, everything for us. So I'm going to click play, and there we go. So now if I do this drop down, there are 4 things that happened to create this color called Frostbite. So now we've got all those here. The beauty is they're all lumped together in a folder. We do have a mask, and we can still change the opacity or the fill. So I can come down and say I only want about 50% of that. So here's before and here's after, just giving it a little bit of that winter cool tones. Now, if I'm not sure I love that, I can turn it off. And let's try muted winter, or actually let's try winter night for something fun. I'm going to show you this one. So this one is going to make it really dramatic, and we can come down and see what's happening. Now you can adjust what's in here. So that's also the beauty of the actions. You don't have to keep all of that. And then we can still change our opacity. So a lot of times I like to bring it down. So that's really nice if you wanted something that's more of that winter look. You can also combine the actions. So we could combine the blue with the night and use both of them. So that's an option as well. So I think for now I'm going to stick with this winter night. I'm going to increase it just a little bit. Now remember, you've got your mask, so we could come over with our black brush and we could remove some of that if we wanted to pop some of the original color back into our subject. So we could mask that off. Now, if you're shooting people and you're using actions like this, you can select your subject and mask that out. Those are some advanced tools. We're not going to cover that today, but just know that there are ways to use these with something besides nature. All right, so I'm going to pop that at about 50%. Now, the other things that come in this action set are some winter details. So if I wanted to create this image and make it look a little more vintage, I could do that. There's also winter saturation. So I can just click play and it is going to apply a saturation. And I'm not seeing a huge difference, just a little bit in the sky here. So it's not super strong. There's also winter glazes. So there's an option to add light, winter mist, winter chill. So let's try this cool finish. And this is a way to just add kind of that, it's giving us that soft glow over. And it's already at 70%, but again, I could bring that down if I wanted to reduce it a little bit. There's also winter hazes. So this is where we could add a matte look to our image. And it's going to go over the entire image so you can see how that looks. It does give us the mask. So again, we can come in with our black brush and we could bring back some of our details if we like what it did to our background. Whoops. Now, you're not going to always use all of these options. Sometimes you may decide that you don't like that winter night, but you really like this winter matte, and maybe we actually want to increase that a little bit. Maybe we don't like the cool finish, or we do. So you've always got options with these that you can play around with. So there's also painting brushes in here, and these are really fun. What I'm going to do is turn off, let's see, I want to turn off probably, we'll go right there. So I want to show you how these brushes work, because you can purchase just Photoshop Action brushes, and those are really handy. So I'm going to do the Silver Bells paint and hit play, and you're going to get a warning that you want to use a brush, soft white brush at 50% or higher. So I'm going to click continue. So now it has made this folder, and this is the Silver Bells folder has got the two things in it. It's a black mask. So now what we need to do is come over and flip this to white, put our brush starting at 50%. And what we're going to do, make this smaller, and this is going to apply a little bit of silver tones. I'm going to go ahead and raise it so that you can see it. It's just kind of brightening. So it's a little bit of brightening to add that kind of winter brightened look. So we could just kind of brush that on some parts of our pine here. And if you do too much, you can just undo. You can just kind of pop it in with your mouse or brush it, around. So it's a fun way to add a little bit of fun to it. So we could also do the Golden Winter light paint. So let's play that one. Again, it's telling us to use the white brush at 50%. And so what I'm going to do now is make the brush really large. I'm going to reduce this opacity to 50, and we're just going to see how it pops in some light. What I like about this is it's kind of fixing that area that looked a little weird in my image. This is just going to pop some nice light all around. And you can use this again. We can change the blend mode. We can lower it, or we can increase it. I'm just going to pop that around. Now there was also Thick Winter Haze. I'm not going to use that one for this image. Now, if you do too much somewhere, you can flip it to black, and we could bring back some of these pine branches. Okay, so that's one way to use that one. And then also included are the snow actions. And this is what I primarily use this for the most. So there's flurry. So I'm going to play this action. And what's going to happen is it's going to do all the masking for us. So it's added the flurry, kind of like a texture, and then it's got a mask built in for us. So we can remove some of this if we don't want it as heavy on our pine. So we can come in and remove some of that. Now there's also snowflakes. So we can do that one and play. And there it goes. So these are much bigger and we can reduce the opacity here. And again, we've got our brush, so we can take some of them off if we find it just a little heavy, but we've got just that added whimsy of the snowflakes. So those are how those actions work. Let me walk you through another image real quick of how I would edit this image. So I'm going to do Command J. And I think the first thing I want to do with this is I'm going to try some of the, I'm not going to do the color tones. I'm going to start with some of the mist. I do think I'm going to try Winter Vintage. So let's play that. And it didn't do a whole lot to this image. So just a little softening. I don't want that on the berries. So I'm going to go ahead and come over and I just want to bring back some of the berries, the color. All right, I'm going to try the Winter Saturation just so because it'll do it for me. And I do like that. So I think that almost takes it back. Let's put that underneath Winter Vintage. There we go. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to try adding this light on the right side because this is where my light was coming from. So I'm going to go ahead and play this action. And you can see now it added that light on the right. It's doing a gradient. And again, we can reduce the opacity if we don't want all of that. I'm going to take that down just a little bit. And I think the next thing I want to do is let me go ahead and take a little bit of that off these red berries in the front. I'm going to go ahead and add my snow. So I'm going to start with just the flurries and play that. And it takes just a minute and there it comes up. So I'm going to reduce the opacity and we've already got our mask. So I'm going to come over and I'm at 50%. And I think what I want to do with this is just really remove it from some of the bottom part where it wouldn't be sticking and maybe leave it right on the kind of on the top parts of the little berries to make it look a little more realistic. I'm just going to bring some of that off. Let's take this opacity up and I'm going to come around and remove it from this one. So this is where you just get to decide if you want it to be whimsical or you want it to be a little more realistic. I do like how the snow is kind of laid right there. Little touches there. Take it off of the bottom of that one. So now we've got some dots of snow where it's landing, but we've also got a little bit more realistic scene. And I can even lower that opacity. And then I could add some of the big flakes just to see what that does. It's going to play. Yeah, I want to bring down that opacity. And what I'm going to do now is, again, I've got that brush at 100% or 80%. Let's go ahead and take the opacity up to 100%. And I'm just going to remove some of these that I don't want. I don't want so many. So I'm just going to come in and kind of take those off where I don't want them. Hope you enjoyed this video, and a reminder, I will place all of my favorite tools and resources in the description of the video for you to access.